You often find the paradox that exists within the discourse of many African spiritualists or those who embrace a similar level. This tends to be a contradiction so glaring yet so frequently overlooked. These folks have the tendency of both rejecting and affirming the Bible at the same time, depending on what time of day it is. This inconsistency is not merely an intellectual oversight, but it's an instability in philosophy. It's a demonstration of double-mindedness that reveals the internal conflict within their own worldview. These African spiritualists or Pan-African folks will ridicule the Bible as a colonial tool meant to strip Africans of their identity and autonomy. They will claim that the Bible is a fairy tale book that has been fabricated and manipulated to deceive an African mind. In other parts though, you will find the very same people who reject the Bible being advocates of its brilliance. You find them even using it as a mirror that helps them understand their identity and who they really are. And in this video, I want us to reflect on such a person who I saw do this more often. He calls himself Abba, and for those who might not know who he is, Abba is a podcast host who rejects the concept of African spirituality but believes in the concept of being African, whatever that means. From his several podcast discussions, we have seen him reject the Bible.
I don't believe in that book. I think it's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs.
To him, affirming it.
Read the Bible with understanding.
My name is Gift Maseko, and this channel is all about Jesus. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and be part of our road to 50,000 subs. And it's only you who can make that possible. All right, let's get into it. In his podcast episode with Uriki, Abba started by saying this.
And I say your Bible on purpose. I don't believe in that book. I think it's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs. I've said that before. It's a book. There's nothing special about it.
But then, under the very same breath, tried to make his point by using the very same Bible he thinks is a fairy tale book.
When Solomon completed the temple of God and he put the last stone, right? They say in the Bible, a light shone from the Holy of Holies and filled the whole temple and enveloped the whole of Jerusalem. And then it went up. In the Hebrew, that light is called Shekinah. Shekinah is the manifestation of Sophia. Sophia is the feminine vibration of the Godhead.
I think it's safe to say this is what he often does.
I don't believe in that book. I think it's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs.
5 minutes later.
What he is. Ngifuna ukuza lapho ngithi ngukhothela uPaul. Uthi Paul, it is better for man to be alone and serve the Lord.
Yes.
But if his lusts are too much for him,
yes,
right?
Yes.
It is better for him to find a woman.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If his bodily lusts are too much for him, it is better for him to find a woman. But it is better for a man to be alone. I don't believe in that book. I think it's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs.
5 minutes later.
A branch shall come from the root of Jesse. A stem shall spring from the root of Jesse. What is a stem? Jesse is a man, a head of a family, and a shoot shall come out of him. What is that? It's an erect penis, my brother. Every tree you see around you is standing like this. A trunk shall spring from the roots. Right? This penis carried Jesus' genealogy, carried King David, carried Solomon, carried Rehoboam, carried all the descendants of this one man, Jesse.
Okay.
We are talking biology and science here. I don't believe in that book. I think it's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs.
5 minutes later.
I read the Bible. I'm not a Christian. It's a book of human development. It's a psychological book. It's a book of how to develop your own consciousness if you know how to read it. I'll give you an example. Matthew chapter 1 speaks about the generations of Jesus Christ. It starts with 14 from Adam to David, 14 from David to exile, 14 from exile to the birth of Jesus. So you have 3 sets of 14. If you write that down, 3, 1, 4, what's that? Pi ratio. Right? And then if you go and study further in the New Testament, same book of Matthew, you find that Jesus goes out and recruits 12 disciples. So now you have one person with 12, right? 13. And those 13 branch out into 72. You see, there's a multiplication that's happening here. There's a geometry, a sacred geometrical pattern that's being painted here. And that sacred geometrical pattern comes back to the human experience.
I don't believe in that book. I think it's It's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs.
5 minutes later.
You constantly have a thirst for knowledge. So if you could please, for the sake of documentation, any books you'd like to recommend that people read besides, let's say, the Bible and the Quran, just to be like, look, if you are in a space where you feel like you're lost and you want to start your journey, so any recommendations in terms of the type of content that people can go and start their insanity?
Oh, you cut down my list. You cut my list short because you said besides the Bible, and the Bible was the first book I was going to say. Read the Bible with understanding, not religiously.
Sure.
I don't believe in that book. I think it's as good as Cinderella or Three Little Pigs.
You see what's happening here, right? What Abba is doing here is what we call the fallacy of inconsistency. If one dismisses the Bible as a mere fiction, comparable to Cinderella and the Three Little Pigs, then any appeal to its teaching for moral or philosophical arguments automatically become invalid. It is logically incoherent to reject a source as unreliable, yet evoke it as truth when it comes to it validating your worldview. This kind of thinking invites us to three concepts of contradiction. The first one being what we call the concept of self-refutation. Self-refutation is when a statement or belief contradicts itself, making it logically impossible for it to be true. It happens when someone makes a claim that undermines its own validity. This would be like me saying there's no such thing as truth. The question you would ask me is this: what makes you think what you're saying is true if truth clearly doesn't exist? Or even better, this would be me saying I cannot speak a single word in English while making that statement in English. You would likely think I've lost it a bit. And that is what we call self-refutation. If the Bible is merely a fantasy, then why waste time in quoting Paul's words? Why use the genealogies according to scripture, or even worse, formulate mathematical and philosophical concepts by using the very same fairy tale book you call the Bible? Unless, of course, Abba uses Cinderella and Three Little Pigs as a base for his beliefs and worldview, since to him, this is comparable to the Holy Scriptures. Another concept of contradiction Abba invites us to is the concept of double standards. Double standards occur when someone applies different rules or judgments to similar situations based on preference and not on principle. It is inconsistency in reasoning, which is when someone accepts or rejects something depending on whether that benefits their objective truth. Examples would be Umapong affirming the Bible when he feels it resonates with him personally, but then rejecting it when he feels like it doesn't align to his own personal beliefs.
Where do you stand with the Bible?
Maybe it's a very beautiful question. The real question must be, where does the Bible stand with me?
No.
I'm coming.
Please answer what I'm asking.
Yes, where do I stand with the Bible? It's better asked, where do I stand in the Bible? Where does the Bible stand with me?
Abba rejects the Bible and thinks it's unreliable, but he finds no problem with quoting it when it supports his own arguments. If one refuses to accept biblical principles holistically, cherry-picking convenient passages is intellectually dishonest. It's like someone calling ANC a dishonest political party while secretly voting for them. And relax, this is just me making an example. It's not a political statement, before you come for my head. The last concept of contradiction is the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction is a fundamental principle of logic that states that something cannot be both true and false at the same time in the same way. It's like someone saying they are inside and outside of the house at the same time. We know that would be impossible. Or someone saying their phone is broken but works perfectly. No, if the phone is broken, then it cannot work perfectly. Something cannot be both false and true at the same time in the same way. Either the Bible holds weight as a source of wisdom or it does not. Rejecting and affirming it at the same time is completely irrational. Even the Bible affirms these concepts. James 1 verse 8 says that a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, which highlights the instability of a person who does not hold to a consistent position. Or how about James 3 verse 11, which asks this question: can both fresh water and salty water flow from the same spring? Here James is making both a logical and moral point. Just as a single spring cannot produce both fresh and salty waters, a person cannot speak truth and falsehood at the same time without contradiction. Abba cannot affirm scripture while rejecting how it calls us to live and how it calls us to see the world. And unfortunately, this tends to be a loophole you'll see when you consider the lives and the claims of African spirituality. If you loved this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to support what we do here, you can be a monthly member on YouTube or join our Patreon. Links in the description. Until the next video, God bless you.